Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The Relentless Storm. Lucas Parker gripped the steering wheel as rain pounded against his windshield. The wipers squealed, struggling to keep his view clear. Thunder rumbled overhead like an angry beast. He hated nights like this, long stretches of empty highway broken only by flash floods and fallen branches. Yet here he was, hauling biofuel tanks through the forest, miles from the nearest town. The storm showed no sign of letting up. A haunting silhouette. Through the curtain of rain, Lucas spotted movement on the shoulder. He slowed, squinting through sheets of water. Was that a person? He blinked. For a moment he thought it was his imagination, a trick of lightning. Then a figure emerged, tall, slender, skin the color of eggplant, clothes torn and clinging. That shape should not exist on Earth. A leap of faith. Lucas's rational brain screamed to drive on. He had deadlines, bills to pay, and no desire to play hero. But something about the figure's stance, her head drooped, one arm dragging, pulled him out of his seat. He parked across the road, killed the engine, and waded into the deluge. Rain soaked him instantly, but he pressed on. An alien in distress. Up close she looked worse than he'd feared. No visible wounds, yet her breaths came in shallow gasps. Her skin shimmered under the storm light, perfect and alien. She lifted a hand to her throat, eyes solid black flicking open to meet his. Lucas stumbled back. He'd never seen eyes like that. Panic fluttered in his chest. Against common sense. Hey, are you okay? He called. His voice sounded tiny against the wind. She didn't answer. He should leave. Hospitals wouldn't accept a dripping wreck with no ID, and cops would swarm him with questions. But the thought of her dying on the roadside felt worse. A bad idea, yes, but sometimes bad ideas are the only ideas. A human dilemma. Lucas knelt and slipped his arms under her back. She was surprisingly light, limp as a rag doll. He carried her every step a squelch in the mud. At the truck, he eased her into the passenger seat, covering her with his jacket. Her warmth seeped through, odd in the cold rain. He closed the door and peered at her face, no pulse, no sound. And yet. Refuge in darkness. He drove without looking back. The storm slowed to a drizzle by the time he reached his remote cabin. Holes of darkness lay between the trees. He killed the engine and sat for a long moment, heart still thumping. Then he lifted her onto his back and hauled her inside. Wood floors creaked under his weight. He set her on the couch, eyes never leaving that impossible violet skin. A fragile truce. Lucas sank to the floor, hands on his knees, catching his breath. He rubbed a hand over his wet hair. What now? He muttered. Silence answered. After a minute, a rustle, her lashes fluttered. Her black eyes opened, fixing on him. He held his breath. Then she spoke, voice hoarse but clear. You saved me. Echoes of obligation. He shook his head. I didn't ask to. She studied him intently, as if weighing every word. In my world, she whispered, saving a life creates a debt. Lucas felt the weight of those words settle between them. He still didn't know who she was or why she wore pain like a second skin. But he knew one thing, from this stormy night forward, nothing would ever be the same dawn of revelations. When Lucas woke the next morning, soft light filtered through dusty blinds. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean. On the couch, Callan lay curled under his blanket, breathing in slow, even rhythms. Lucas rubbed his eyes, heart still pounding from the night's events. He stared at her violet skin, remarkable in the new light. Reality felt shaky. Had he really sheltered an alien scientist? He rose quietly, careful not to wake her. But as he reached for coffee, a small gasp drew him back. Callan's eyes fluttered open, solid black pupils focusing on him. The journey of truth began here. Her urgent confession. Callan sat up shakily, blanket slipping from her shoulders. Lucas held it in place, voice soft. You're awake, she nodded, gaze distant. Thank you, she whispered, voice hoarse from sleep. Lucas braced himself as she cleared her throat. I must tell you everything, she said. She paused, weighing each word. I am Callan Vora, a genetic engineer from the planet Orionis Prime. Lucas's mouth fell open. He leaned forward. Genetic engineer, he repeated. She nodded, fear flickering in her eyes. My research threatened the council. They seek to destroy every copy. I am the only one left. Lucas clenched his jaw. This was bigger than he knew. His troubled mind. Lucas paced the small living room. Simple wood floors creaked under his boots. His mind raced. Government conspiracies, alien fugitives, none of it made sense. He sank onto a chair, head in hands. Why me? He muttered. Callan watched quietly, pain flickering in her gaze. Lucas stood, running a hand through his hair. He glanced at the device on the coffee table, a small metallic watch-sized object glowing faintly. You're hunting for me, he said. Callan nodded. The council will come. They track neural signatures. Lucas swallowed. He'd never felt so small, sitting in a cabin, holding the fate of an alien world in his hands. Unveiling the prototype. Callan reached into her torn cloak and retrieved the device. She laid it on the table, careful not to touch exposed circuitry. The object looked innocent, metal and glass, no larger than Lucas's palm, yet it pulsed with contained power. "This is why they want me dead," Callan said. Lucas leaned closer, heart thundering. Every instinct screamed to run, to destroy, to forget. But his curiosity overpowered fear. He traced a finger along its smooth edge. She caught his hand, stopping him. "Don't touch," she warned. Lucas pulled back, respect mingling with awe. This small device held the key to her world's freedom and their salvation. "How it works?" Callan cleared her throat, voice steady. "This is a neural enhancer. It rewires pathways, expands cognition, thoughts flow faster, creativity blossoms, memory deepens." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "So a brain booster?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Far more, it challenges conditioning, breaks mental shackles." Lucas frowned. "Conditioning?" she nodded. "On Orionus Prime, free thought is forbidden. The Council imposes training that limits innovation." Lucas's heart sank. Forced ignorance bred control. "With this, your people could question everything," he said. Callan's eyes glowed. "They saw it as a threat to their power. They destroyed my lab, hunted my team." She paused. "I escaped with this prototype." "Life under control." Callan's voice trembled as she described her home world. Towering spires of glass and steel, streets monitored by drones, public broadcasts spouting council doctrine. Citizens walked in uniform lines, cranial implants feeding curated data. Any sign of independent thought triggered re-education. Creativity was a crime. Lucas imagined himself trapped in such a world and shivered. "How did you stay hidden?" he asked. Callan shrugged. "I erased my records, traveled through sectors, used safe houses, but the council's reach is vast." Lucas clenched his fists. He hated bullies and oppressors. He looked at her, determination rising. "They won't find you here, we'll keep you safe." Narrow escape. She told him of the night she fled her transport ship. Armed guards stormed her lab, weapons blazing. Her colleagues fell around her. She slipped into a shuttle pod just as the main reactor exploded. The blast damaged her vessel's navigation, throwing her off course until she crash-landed on Earth. Lucas pressed his palm to his chest tight with guilt. "You survived a bombing, a crash, and a storm," he said softly. Callan nodded, eyes wet. "I nearly died in the wreckage. Without you," she trailed off. Lucas set his jaw. "We'll make sure they never catch you." His promise. Lucas took a deep breath, voice steady. "You saved your world, now let me save you." Callan's black eyes met his, gratitude and fear swirling. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. He shook his head. "I do, no more hiding." He stood, packing. "We need a plan, so." "Nothing permanent." Callan studied him, hope flickering. Lucas clenched his fists. "I promise I'll protect you, whatever it takes." She exhaled slowly, relief washing over her face. At that moment, an unspoken bond formed between a human trucker and an alien genius. Forging a plan. They sat at the table, poring over notes scribbled on torn paper. Callan drew crude diagrams of her world's tracking systems. Lucas jotted down ideas, burner phones, off-grid supply runs, code words. They discussed safe locations, abandoned mines, forest cabins, rented RVs. Every idea balanced safety against speed. Lucas suggested contacting trusted friends, but Callan hesitated. "Any connection risks them," she said. Lucas nodded. "We go it alone, keep it small." They agreed on signals: 2 knocks on a window for danger, 3 knocks for safe clearance. Every detail mattered. They prepared for a life on the run. Gathering tools. The next day, Lucas drove into town under the pretense of getting supplies. He purchased camping gear, extra fuel, and a simple laptop. Callan watched from the truck, anxiety written across her face. "Be careful," she warned. Lucas smiled. "I've dodged state inspectors. I can handle small-town cops." He loaded boxes of dried food, medical kits, and batteries. On a hunch, he grabbed a handheld radio. As he paid, he noticed a man in a dark coat watching. Lucas forced calm, paid, and left. Back at the cabin, they stowed supplies and tested the radio on different frequencies. They tucked everything into hidden crates. A small success. That night, Lucas and Callan worked on the device calibration. Callan guided Lucas's hands, teaching him to adjust micro dials. She explained that the enhancer could be tuned for short bursts or sustained use. Lucas followed instructions with care, his fingers trembling. He clicked a switch, nothing happened. Then a soft hum filled the room. Callan's eyes widened. "It's active." Lucas felt a wave of clarity in his mind, ideas flowing faster. He blinked, startled. Callan laughed, a pure, joyful sound. "You feel it?" she asked. Lucas grinned. "It's like my brain just woke up." They shared a triumphant moment. A distant danger. As dawn approached, Callan checked the radio. Static, then whispers. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Did you call someone?" he asked. Callan shook her head. "It's them." On the scanner, faint voices spoke in alien tones, calling a name. Vora. Lucas stiffened. "They're close." Callan's face drained of color. They use shipborne scanners, they track neural codes, we have hours, maybe less. Lucas grabbed his coat. We move now. They packed essentials and slipped out the back door, hearts pounding, minds clear with purpose. Unexpected bond. As they fled into the forest, Lucas felt something shift between them. Fear had forged trust, danger had sparked partnership. Callan matched his pace, her arm brushing his. He glanced at her, she nodded, determination in her eyes. No words passed between them, but the bond was clear, they would face the hunt together. Under a canopy of pine and birch, two outcasts, one human, one alien, raced toward an uncertain future, united by necessity and a promise that went beyond simple gratitude. Journey ahead. They reached an old logging trail at first light. Deep ruts in the earth led away from the cabin. Lucas paused, breathing hard. This way, he asked. Callan pointed. It leads to an abandoned radio tower, higher ground, better signals. Lucas nodded. He checked his watch, time running short. Together they set off down the trail, leaves crunching underfoot. Every snap of a twig made Callan's head turn. Lucas murmured reassurance, I've got you. She squeezed his hand, silent thanks. Their odyssey continued, each step carrying them further from home and closer to destiny. Step into the unknown. As they disappeared into misty woods, Lucas glanced at Callan's device tucked safely in his jacket pocket. The prototype glowed faintly, a beacon of hope and danger. Behind them, the cabin faded into memory. Ahead lay unknown trials, hostile agents, alien technology, and the weight of two worlds on their shoulders. Lucas inhaled the crisp morning air, heart steady. Beside him, Callan walked with cautious confidence. Together, they stepped into the unknown, bound by a desperate deal and a promise that would shape the fate of humanity's wrath, shadows closing in. Radio Tower Refuge. Lucas and Callan crested the ridge just as dawn broke. The old radio tower loomed ahead, rusty and half-collapsed, yet still standing guard over the valley below. Lucas's boots crunched gravel as he led the way, Callan close behind. She scanned the horizon, alert for movement. With every step, the gravity of their situation grew heavier. Agents of the Orionis Prime Council were on their trail, silent, unrelenting, and armed with technology that could breach any defense. They reached the tower's base, and Lucas helped Callan inside. The door hung on a single hinge. Inside, dust motes danced in stray beams of sunlight. Here they hoped Callan's radio call might reach sympathetic ears. Callan's signal. Callan flipped open her backpack and carefully removed a battered laptop. Lucas found a folding chair and set it beneath the antenna mast. Callan plugged the neural enhancer's small transmitter into the laptop's USB port. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, nerves and determination warring in her black eyes. She typed rapidly, crafting a coded distress signal. Rescued genetic engineer, neural prototype seeking asylum. She encoded her coordinates using an obscure frequency. Lucas watched the screen, heart pounding. Finally, Callan hit send. The tower's ancient antenna whined, then crackled, broadcasting the message far beyond Earth's atmosphere. They held their breath, waiting for a reply. An alien response. Static crackled across the speakers. Callan's face lit up. I'm receiving, she whispered. A crackled voice spoke in alien tones, urgent and clipped. Lucas couldn't understand the words, but Callan nodded, relief washing over her. She responded, careful to keep their location secret until reinforcements arrived. The voice agreed to wait and then cut off abruptly. Callan exhaled, lowering her head into her hands. They'll send a small ship, she said. It will arrive within hours. Lucas glanced at the sky, still pale and empty. Hours felt like forever when every moment risked discovery. Distant watchers. Unseen overhead, a sleek council scout ship pierced the stratosphere. Aboard, Agent Renard and his team monitored the tower's signal bounce back off Earth, ionosphere. Renard's features were cold and precise, a seasoned hunter. He tapped a console, directing drones to triangulate the broadcast. On Earth, hovering above the tower, 3 drones hummed black iron and harsh lights. Infrared sensors traced heat signatures to the tower's broken windows. Below, Lucas and Callan twirled, oblivious to the eyes tracking their every move. The first drone locked on their signal. Crimson alert. Inside the tower, Callan's console chirped with a warning. They're close, she said, voice tight. Lucas grabbed her hand. We need to move, he said, urgency spiking in his chest. Callan nodded, pulling the laptop down. The transmitter blinked red. They had seconds. Lucas slung the backpack over his shoulder. They darted toward the tower's narrow service stairway. Sparks flew as they shut down the transmitter and yanked cables free. Behind them, the door burst open. 3 dark-suited agents filed in. The nearest drone's spotlight slashed through the broken wall, illuminating their retreat. A perilous descent. Lucas and Callan stumbled down the winding stairwell, the concrete echoing their footfalls. Callan clutched the laptop and device tight against her chest. Lucas scanned each landing, eyes narrowing. Suddenly, a drone whistle cut through the air, a beam of polarized light swept the stairwell. Lucas shoved Callan into a side alcove just as the light passed. They pressed flat against cold stone, breath shallow. Footsteps thundered above, they couldn't stay hidden long. Lucas raised a finger to his lips. Callan's black eyes met his, panic and trust swirling together. Callan's ingenuity. With trembling hands, Callan opened her jacket and retrieved the neural enhancer prototype. She twisted a small dial on its side and pressed a button. The device emitted a soft blue pulse that washed over the stairwell. The polarization sensors in the drone beam flickered and shut down for a heartbeat. Lucas seized the moment, grabbing a metal railing piece and swinging it hard at the beam emitter protruding from the wall. Sparks flew as the emitter cracked. Alarms blared. Callan's pulse quickened. "That bought us time," she panted. Lucas nodded, adrenaline sharpening his focus. "Let's go." Through the blurs, they sprinted past stunned agents, ducking under low ceilings and vaulted cables. Lucas guided Callan through a maintenance hatch that led outside. Rain from an earlier drizzle slicked the metal walkway. Lucas helped Callan across, supporting her steps. One agent shouted behind them, voice distant and urgent. Above, drones scanned furiously, their spotlights carving arcs through the gloom. Lucas made for a thick stand of pines. Callan followed, fear and determination etched on her violet-hued skin. They plunged into the forest, trees swallowing them in shadow. Forest chase. Twigs snapped and leaves rustled as the agents pursued. Boots pounded on the soft earth, a distant drum of danger. Lucas led Callan through tangled underbrush weaving between trunks. Callan's breathing was ragged. Lucas wiped mud from her brow. His heart thundered, but he forced his mind calm. He found a fallen log and pulled Callan over it, then vaulted himself. Behind them, the first agent emerged, gun raised, voice barking orders in alien. Lucas grabbed a branch, threw it straight up at the drone overhead. The small branch hit the drone's sensor and it veered off balance. Its spotlight swung wildly before crashing to the ground. Lucas's stand. As the drone fell, Lucas saw the agent raising a stun rifle. He barreled forward, tackling the agent to the ground. His knuckles collided with armored plating. Callan gasped, ready to help, but Lucas signaled her to flee. The agent twisted, firing a stun bolt that scorched the earth inches from Lucas's face. Lucas rolled, yanking the agent's rifle from his grasp. He smashed it against a rock, rendering it useless. Standing, bruised but unbowed, Lucas shouted, "Run." Callan hesitated, her scientist's caution in conflict with her survival instinct, then sprinted after him. Narrow escape. They burst from the forest into a shallow ravine where fog hovered near the ground. Lucas and Callan scrambled over rocks and fallen branches. The second agent, enraged, emerged at the ravine's edge, scanning for movement. Beyond stood a makeshift ATV Lucas had stashed earlier. Without slowing, Lucas leapt onto the ATV's seat. Callan threw herself up beside him. Lucas gunned the engine, the ATV roared to life. Behind them, agents shouted as they climbed onto their own hover sled. Lucas steered sharply through the ravine's narrow passage, mud spraying. Callan held on tight, device tucked against her heart. Bond in peril. As the ATV tore through the undergrowth, Callan looked at Lucas, eyes wide with gratitude and fear. Lucas glanced back, determination set in his jaw. Together they navigated the ravine's twists and turns, always a step ahead. At one bend, the drone sled hovered too close, the wind blast nearly threw them off. Lucas accelerated, forcing the sled to juggle, and it spun, crashing into a tree. Callan exhaled in relief. Lucas reached over, brushing a muddy lock of hair from her face. "You okay?" he asked. Callan nodded, voice soft. "Thanks to you, yes." Their hands lingered together for a heartbeat before Lucas focused back on the path ahead. Night shelter. They reached a hidden cave at the ravine's end just as dusk fell. Lucas killed the ATV's engine. Callan slid off, legs shaking. Lucas gathered her into an embrace. "We're safe for now," he murmured. Inside the cave, they found a dry patch for a small camp. Lucas unpacked 2 wool blankets and offered one to Callan. She accepted, wrapping it around her shoulders. They shared a meager dinner of dried fruit and water, but the food tasted like a feast. Outside, the forest grew silent, as if watching their retreat with cautious respect. A Starlit Confessions. Later, they sat at the cave's mouth, starlight shimmering on the valley below. Callan turned to Lucas, voice uncertain. "I don't know how to repay you," she said. Lucas smiled gently. "You already did. Your trust means more than any reward." Callan's eyes glistened with tears she refused to shed. "My debt is vast," she whispered. Lucas shook his head. "Forget debts, we're partners now." Callan studied his face, absorbing the sincerity in his tone. In that moment, a bridge formed between human courage and alien hope, one neither expected, yet both needed. New strategy. As the night deepened, they plotted their next move. Callan suggested they head west to a remote airstrip where sympathetic pilots might smuggle her off-planet. Lucas raised concerns. Council drones scoured airspace and governments might cooperate if bribed. They brainstormed routes, each more complex than the last. Lucas proposed a decoy, plant a transmitter beacon in a distant town, then slip away under its false signal. Callan nodded, impressed by his tactical mind. They refined the plan, adding contingencies for betrayal and injury. With every detail, their confidence grew. Unknown horizons. By the time the first light of dawn touched the cave's entrance, Lucas and Callan were ready to move. They packed the device, the laptop, and essentials into a camo-patterned duffel. Callan placed a gentle hand on the neural enhancer's cool metal. Lucas secured the bag to his back. Together, they stared at the path leading deeper into uncharted territory. Danger still lurked behind them, and the Council's wrath hung on every signal they emitted. Yet ahead lay hope, friends waiting beyond Earth's sky, a chance to change two worlds. Lucas took Callan's hand. "Let's go," he said. Side by side, they vanished into the forest's morning mist, ready for whatever shadows lay ahead. Arrival at the mountain cabin. Lucas steered the ATV through a narrow pine trail, tires kicking up needles and dust. The mountain cabin appeared at last, its weathered logs blending with the forest. Icicles hung from the eaves, glistening in the morning sun. The cabin's small windows gave it a lonely look, but Lucas felt hope stir in his chest. Callan watched the structure with guarded relief. They parked the ATV by a side entrance and unloaded their gear. Every crate and bag held precious supplies, tools, tech, and the neural enhancer prototype. Inside, they found a simple living space and a workshop bench under a dusty window. Laying out the workspace. Callan traced her fingers over the workshop bench. Tools from Earth and Orionis Prime lay side by side, pliers, soldering irons, microcircuit boards, and alien fiber conduits. Lucas opened crates of extra wires and clamps. He arranged everything with careful precision. Callan smiled, a flicker of genuine warmth. "This bench will do," she said, voice steady. Lucas nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. They cleared a corner of the living space, setting up lamps and a folding table. With a few borrowed extension cords, the cabin glowed with newfound energy. Their safe haven had begun to transform into a makeshift lab. Rediscovering the design. Callan unpacked a worn data pad containing fragmentary schematics from her destroyed lab. The screen flickered, but the files were intact. She projected the diagrams onto a blank wall using a small hollow emitter. Lines and nodes traced the flow of neural signals, each step critical. Lucas studied the patterns, mouth slightly open. "It's like a map of thought," he murmured. Callan nodded, eyes focused. "Every connection reroutes mental pathways. We need to rebuild the amplifier, the regulator, and the safety filter." Lucas ran a hand over the pad. "Show me," he said. For the first time, he felt part of something greater than himself. Callan guided Lucas through the basics of alien circuitry. She handed him a spool of shimmering wire woven from biometallic strands. "This conducts thought signals," she explained. Lucas nodded, carefully threading it through a miniature coil. His fingers trembled, but he concentrated on her calm instructions. She described how the wires interfaced with human-grade components. Lucas listened, absorbing new terminology: synaptic resonance, neural feedback, quantum gating. With each term, his understanding deepened. She praised his steady hands, and Lucas felt pride swell in his chest. A partnership formed, engineer and aide working as equals. Scavenging Earth materials. They gathered parts from Lucas's truck and the surrounding woods. Callan needed copper tubing and small motors. Lucas volunteered to fetch them. He returned with a rusty alternator from the truck's engine and coiled copper wire from an old transformer at the cabin's back. Callan examined each piece, selecting what she could repurpose. Together, they fashioned a rudimentary motor-driven spindle for precise coil winding. Lucas marveled at her ingenuity, how she turned broken Earth machines into alien-grade instruments. Every successful adaptation tightened their bond and fueled their shared hope. Improvised testing rig. On the folding table, Callan and Lucas assembled a crude testing rig. A soldering iron hummed and sparks danced as they joined wires to circuit boards. Callan calibrated a handheld scanner to monitor voltage fluctuations. Lucas fed wires into the scanner, watching dials flicker. Tension crackled in the air. Every misstep could fry components or unleash dangerous energy. Callan's jaw set in determination. "Steady," she whispered. Lucas inhaled, aligning a microchip under a magnifying lens. With a precise click, the chip snapped into place. The rig emitted a soft hum. They exchanged glances. Progress. First trial run. Callan adjusted a control knob on the rig and placed the neural enhancer prototype into the cradle. Lucas held his breath. She pressed a button. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the prototype glowed faintly blue, its circuits pulsing. The scanner registered a spark of resonance. Callan's eyes shone. "We're getting output," she said. Lucas let out a breath he didn't know he held. They repeated the test, refining voltages, tightening connections. Each iteration brought a clearer signal. Joy and relief washed over them. They had crossed a threshold. Rebuilding the enhancer was possible. Deepening complication. Outside, the forest remained silent, but a distant drone buzz grew louder. Lucas glanced at the window, alarm flickering. Callan noticed. She halted the test and powered down the rig. They extinguished lamps and listened. The drone's whine cut through the trees, growing nearer. Lucas mouthed, "They found us." Callan's face paled. "We need to move the prototype." Lucas grabbed it from the rig. They packed it into a lead-lined box to block tracking signals. Sweat beaded on Lucas's brow. They hustled supplies back into crates as the drone passed overhead, its searchlight slicing through the cabin. Then silence. Bond around adversity. Lucas sank onto the floor, breathing hard. Callan knelt beside him, voice soft. "We did well," she said. Lucas ran a hand through his hair. "We almost got caught." Callan placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Your courage kept us safe." Lucas met her black-eyed gaze. "Your brilliance built this promise." For a moment, words and fears fell away. They sat side by side, the weight of their mission balanced by shared triumph. Outside, the wind rustled pine needles. Inside, two hearts found strength in each other. Rebuilding confidence. Callan stood, determination renewed. "We can't stay," she said. Lucas nodded. "We move this rig to a new site." They packed lamps, scanners, and spare parts. Lucas suggested a nearby abandoned mine he knew from childhood, hidden in a rocky ravine. Callan agreed. She stowed data pads and prototypes in waterproof cases. Lucas organized tools and secured crates. Every item mattered. A missing screw could derail their progress. As they worked, Callan sketched a faster assembly method on scrap paper, optimizing component layout. Lucas studied her notes, impressed by her evolving design. Unexpected discovery. While clearing debris, Lucas found a trapdoor under the cabin's floorboards. He pried it open to reveal a shallow pit once used for firewood storage. Inside lay old lanterns and wooden beams. Lucas pulled out a lantern and dusted it off. "This could shield the circuit from light interference," he said. Callan examined it, eyes bright. "And the beams could form a better frame for the rig." Together, they salvaged wood and hardware. This hidden space would become their secret sub-lab, safe from prying eyes and drones. Ingenuity turned an old pit into a hidden workshop. Turning point breakthrough. They arrived at the mine entrance under cover of dusk. Callan carried the prototype box. Lucas shouldered crates. Inside, the mine's deep mouth swallowed them in darkness. Lucas lit a lantern, its gentle glow casting long shadows. They set up the rig on a flat stone outcrop. Callan reassembled components using the mine's rock walls as workbenches. Lucas managed lamps and extension leads. As Callan completed the final circuit, she held up the prototype. Lucas pressed the activation button. The enhancer sprang to life with a steady hum. Screens on Callan's scanner displayed stable resonance curves and then something new, a spike. Unlocking potential. Callan's eyes widened at the data. "The output is higher than before," she whispered. Lucas peered at the graphs. Neural signal amplification exceeded design predictions. Callan's design refinements had improved performance. They tested the rig with careful increments, watching as the amplifier scaled signals smoothly. Lucas felt a surge of excitement. "We did it," he said. Callan's smile was radiant in the lantern light. "We can share this," she said softly. Lucas nodded, awe and hope mingling in his chest. Preparing for the next step. With the prototype running smoothly, Callan backed up all data to encrypted drives. Lucas packaged multiple copies of the design notes and schematics in waterproof pouches. They loaded everything into backpacks and slung them over their shoulders. Callan looked around the mine's cavernous mouth. "We need allies to help distribute this," she said. Lucas gripped her hand. "We'll find them." They paused at the mine's entrance, lanterns illuminating their determined faces. Behind them lay a hidden lab built from wood and stone. Ahead lay unknown roads and unseen allies. Embracing a new horizon. As they stepped from the mine into a starry night sky, Lucas and Callan felt the weight of their journey shift. Danger still lurked, but hope blazed brighter. Their partnership, born of desperation, had grown into shared purpose. Callan carried the neural enhancer prototype, humanity's bridge to free thought. Lucas held the designs, proof that two worlds could unite. Together, they vanished into the mountain shadows, ready to face enemies and allies alike in their quest to break boundaries and spark a revolution of minds. A fragile sanctuary. Small farmhouse by the lake offered a brief respite. Lucas and Callan had slipped away from the mountains at dawn, weary and determined. Deputy Mercer, a weathered man with kind gray eyes, greeted them at the door. He claimed to know Lucas from his truck route days and insisted they stay the night. Inside, the wood stove crackled and dinner simmered in a cast iron pot. Callan settled on a worn armchair, blanket around her shoulders while Lucas unpacked supplies. For the first time in weeks, they felt safe. The prototype and schematics lay hidden under floorboards. Outside, stars glimmered, yet trust would soon shatter. An unexpected visitor. As the fire warmed the room, Mercer joined them with mugs of steaming tea. He asked gentle questions: where they'd come from, how long they'd traveled, and what had brought them so deep into the woods. Lucas answered cautiously, on edge despite Mercer's calm tone. Callan watched in silence, her black eyes scanning every movement. Mercer listened intently, nodding as if their story made sense. He offered more tea and bread, his hospitality sincere, or so it seemed. When Callan quietly excused herself, Mercer folded his hands, gaze steady. Lucas sensed a flicker of something unreadable in Mercer's eyes. He sipped tea, mind racing. An alluring proposition. After dinner, Mercer suggested they accompany him into town the next morning for supplies. He spoke of a friendly grocer who would sell in bulk without questions. Lucas hesitated. Roads were no longer safe. Mercer smiled, voice low. I know a back route, he said. No patrols, no checkpoints. Callan frowned, uneasy. We should stay hidden, she whispered. Mercer shrugged. This place can't shelter you forever. Lucas met Mercer's gaze. The deputy's confidence was contagious. Maybe a quick trip would restore normalcy. Yet in the back of his mind, Lucas worried this kindness came at a price. He nodded slowly. Echoes of doubt. That night, Lucas lay awake on a narrow cot, listening to wood crack in the stove. Callan slept in a corner chair, head pillowed on folded jackets. Lucas stared at the ceiling, mind replaying Mercer's words. Something felt off, too many questions, too much eagerness to help. He rose quietly and peered into Callan's shadowed face. Her eyes were closed, but her brow creased as if troubled. Lucas sat beside her and gently shook her arm. She opened her eyes, black orbs reflecting his concern. I don't trust him, she whispered. Lucas squeezed her hand. Neither do I, he said. They shared a silent vow to watch. A midnight rendezvous. Shortly after midnight, Lucas awoke to hushed voices outside. He rose, heart thudding, and slipped to the window. Deputy Mercer crouched by the barn with his radio, speaking rapid alien phrases. Lucas's blood ran cold. Mercer tapped a code into the handset. The council's agents would arrive at dawn. Lucas stumbled back, adrenaline surging. Callan stirred, sensing the panic. Lucas shook her awake. He's calling them, he hissed. Callan sat up, eyes wide. We must move now, she said. They grabbed the prototype and data drives from the floorboards. Every second counted as they crept toward the woods. Weapons drawn. As Lucas unlatched the kitchen door, a harsh light swept the yard. Agents in dark suits surrounded the farmhouse, rifles aimed. Mercer stepped forward, radio in hand. His face was unreadable under the brim of his hat. He spoke once more into the handset, then raised his weapon. Lucas crouched behind a barrel, pulling Callan down beside him. She clutched the lid-lined box. Lucas nodded, mouth dry. They would fight, no choice. Lucas drew his hunting rifle from a strap on his back and took aim. Callan's gaze met his, fear mingled with resolve. They prepared for a desperate stand, Callan's quick thinking. As agents advanced under Mercer's cover fire, Callan activated a small device from her coat pocket. It was a neural enhancer calibration tool set to emit a dampening field. She pressed the trigger, and a silent pulse radiated outward. The agent's scanners flickered and shut down momentarily. Their formation broke as they scrambled, confused. Lucas seized the moment to fire warning shots into the ground, sending gravel and dirt flying. Mercer shouted orders in alien tongues, but his voice trembled. Callan's device had bought them precious seconds. Lucas grabbed her arm. This way. Lucas's stand. They sprinted toward the woods, but Mercer blocked their path. He aimed at Lucas, eyes hard. I'm sorry, he spat, voice cracking. Lucas froze, rifle trained on Mercer's chest. Callan stepped forward, pleading, Grant, don't do this. Mercer's finger trembled on the trigger. He lowered the gun, conflicted. Lucas seized the rifle's stock and twisted it, bringing it down hard on Mercer's wrist. The weapon clattered to the ground. With one swift motion, Lucas kicked the radio handset from Mercer's grasp. Callan kicked it further into the grass. Mercer staggered, chest heaving, realization and shame in his eyes. Shattered trust. Callan and Lucas bound Mercer's hands with rope from their pack. His friendly facade lay in tatters. He sank to his knees in the dirt, shoulders slumped. The farmhouse lights dimmed behind them as agents retreated, scanning the trees. Lucas whispered, We warned you. Mercer hung his head, voice hollow. I was desperate, he admitted. They offered me a pardon. Callan knelt beside him, anger and pity in her gaze. You sold us to death, she said softly. Mercer closed his eyes, tears mingling with sweat. I thought they'd spare me, he whispered. Lucas and Callan rose, leaving Mercer in the clearing as they melted into the forest. The heavy cost. Underground roots tore at Lucas's boots as they fled. Every shadow felt like an agent. Callan clutched the prototype, heart pounding. Lucas flung their gear onto his back, urging her forward. Behind them, faint gunshots echoed, the council agents searching for any sign. Callan stumbled over a root. Lucas caught her arm, steadying her. They swallowed fatigue and fear, driven by survival. The woods closed around them, freeing them from immediate danger but costing them a safe place to rest. They had lost equipment in their rush. Their backup scanners and spare parts lay behind them in the farmhouse. Healing ties. They found solace by a mountain stream at dawn. Lucas knelt and cupped water, offering it to Callan. She drank deeply, eyes closed. Lucas massaged her shoulders, whispering reassurances. "We're okay," he said. Callan leaned into him, exhaustion and relief mingling. "We're alone again," she murmured. Lucas smiled gently, but together. The prototype and data drives remained secure. Their trust in others was shattered, but their bond had grown stronger. Betrayal had tested them, yet they endured. The forest around them sighed with morning breeze, as if acknowledging their pain.